Joining me now, three of the country's best political minds, Democratic strategist, CNN contributor Hank Sheinkopf, New York Daily News columnist, CNN contributor Errol Louis, also the host of WWRL's Morning Show, and James Taranto, editor of OpinionJournal.com. Good to have you all here. Well, let's start with the White House decision to bail out Detroit all on its own. So what has the last few weeks been all about, Hank?
Well, George Bush still thinks he's president, which is extraordinary because the media has decided he's not. What does it mean? They would love, the Democrats would love to pass it on to the administration. The Republicans would like to stick it to everybody right now. It's pure politics.
The Democratic leadership, though, of this Congress has been singularly incapable, apparently, of getting much done. What's going on there?
Well, they don't have the votes yet, frankly. I mean, this would be an entirely different kind of a vote on the auto bailout if it took place a month from now. You know, without the votes, you had a lot of these, Mitch McConnell, you had a bunch of these Republicans who represent states where there are lots of foreign car companies, Hyundai and Honda and Mercedes-Benz. And
you're not saying this is really about the foreign car maker plants in this country versus the formerly U.S. car maker plants in this country?
Well, it sure looked that way when it came down to the final legislative battle that sunk the congressional bailout.
Yeah, we're hearing from Sessions in Shelby and Alabama, DeMint in Carolina. We're hearing, you know, I mean, the list goes on. What's the deal?
Well, it's always hard to get things done in the Senate because you basically need 60 votes to get past the filibuster. And you forgot to mention Corcoran, Tennessee, who was holding out for an agreement with parity with the unions. But, you know, if Congress really wants to do something to help the auto industry, it should get rid of these fuel economy standards, which force Detroit to build these small cars where they're not competitive. You know, Detroit is able to make a profit building SUVs and pickup trucks.
Well, you know, you say that, but the truth is Detroit has been lousy at making a buck for years now, and that's sort of extraordinary. But what is really strange about it is that the banks and the financial institutions, the insurance companies, all falling apart, getting hundreds of billions of dollars without comment, for crying out loud, from this Congress or this president. But for $14 billion, we get weeks of hearings and lots of you know, bloviating rhetoric. My God, what's that about?
It is a disgrace because in those situations, there are not real working people involved. In this situation, there are real working people involved. And you notice the press has generally been, from the automakers, I believe they're doing a PR campaign to talk about how their workers just make too much money. Nobody put a gun to anybody's head and said, sign that contract.
Right.
Okay? Nobody did that.
Yeah, I would only argue one thing. Those 35,000 workers are going to lose their jobs at Bank of America over the next few years at least, apparently. The thousands upon thousands of people have lost their jobs on Wall Street, and we're not talking about executive, we're talking about lower level working men and women. I mean, all of this is reaching to the folks who make this country really work, not the fat cats and
I'll tell you, I think the automobile industry is paying for the sins of that banking bailout. You know, after the bailout, when we and everybody else raised a hue and cry, how could you sign over all of these, you know, hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars without even real adequate hearings?
With a 2.5-page application form for the bankers. I mean, that's crazy.
So then when, you know, when Detroit came knocking, they said, well, we're going to try and do it right, you know, or at least try not to get as much heat. And then, you know, we had what we saw, which was a long, extended farce.
What is interesting here is that the President of the United States, a Republican, negotiated with the Democratic leadership of Congress, but left out his own party in Congress. I mean, how stupid does this administration get in even its waning lame duck days?
Pretty stupid.
Well, okay, we'll assess that later. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with our panel in just a moment, and we'll find out just how things are going in Chicago. Apparently, there's a little more to the Obama Illinois governor deal than we thought. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We're back with our political panel. Rahm Emanuel, the President-elect's Chief of Staff designate. You know, he tells the press he can't talk about the Blagojevich scandal and his role or non-role in it because he's a father. I mean, Hank, this is starting to look a little like business as usual in politics, isn't it?
Well, it always is business as usual, Lou. If you remember, Carter came in, said he'd change everything, put in people no one had ever heard of, and the end result was a disaster. This fella understands, get people that everybody knows maybe won't have a disaster. But the scandal, not that he's involved with it, and the president-elect has got a large credit card with the American public, but somebody's got to figure out a way to really get him away from it, and they got to answer some questions to get that done.
Yeah, ask George Bush how quickly you can use up that political capital.
Pretty quick.
And the press asked him, what was it, 4 questions? 4 or 5 questions? No follow-up on any of this? Errol, come on!
I think we're going to hear all of it. In the end, it may take the judicial process and the prosecution of Rod Blagojevich to get to the bottom of it. But look, Obama is trying to do what some presidents before him have done. Harry Truman came out of a very corrupt machine in the Midwest. FDR came out of Tammany Hall here in New York City, and they tried to sort of launder their past, move beyond the muck and mire from which they rose. Clearly, they had the advantage of not having 24-hour news watching them do it. What we have is Obama trying to sort of put behind him the sleazy politics, that everybody in Chicago knows about, that sent 3 governors to prison, and that is going to, the odor of which is going to follow him apparently to Inauguration Day.
Yeah, we can now say with absolute certainty that of the last 8 governors of the state of Illinois, 5 have been arrested or indicted, 1 remains in jail, and 3 have been to prison. I mean, these are numbers that are staggering by
Louisiana standards.
Well, they're batting 1,000. What's wrong with that? Those are pretty good numbers. Yeah.
So this, okay, I'm going to buy into what Errol's saying to me. That this is a president-elect who's trying to leave behind the sordid cesspool of politics from which he springs. He is trying to do the right thing. Then why not a simple, straightforward answer? What was Rahm Emanuel's role, if any? What was anybody's role? What is this nonsense about first we're saddened and sobered? That we'll get back to you on that, and we'll have in a few days a couple of answers. I mean, this sounds like, well, it sounds like any number of politicians in this country.
Well, I guess the answer to that is when you're a potential witness in a criminal case and Patrick Fitzgerald asks you not to discuss the case, you have a good reason not to. But I'm a father is a pretty lame excuse. You're right.
Yeah. Well, Rahm Emanuel said that with such sanctimonious nonsense that, first of all, he's not. I mean, this guy's supposed to be a tough guy.
Look, for those of your viewers who don't know, before Rahm Emanuel had that congressional seat, it was inhabited by a guy named Rod Blagojevich. So it makes Rahm Emanuel a very natural connect.
Was that the 5th congressional district?
The Rostenkowski seat.
Yeah.
The
distinguished history.
Quite famous locale, yes.
Then we will take that as our final word and silver lining in all of this. James, thank you very much. Errol, thank you. Hank, thank you. And thank you for being with us. Join us tomorrow. For all of us here, thank you for watching, and good night from New York.